Hi all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. Well, yesterday was the day for the new documentary about the Watts family murders, American Murder, The Family Next Door on Netflix. If you want to watch it but forgot about it, it's on Netflix now. I don't think I'll reveal any spoilers in this video, but if you're concerned I might, then click off now and watch after you see the documentary, because you won't want to miss Chris's call from prison. For those of you who may not know what I'm talking about, it's a documentary about Chris Watts, a husband and father in Frederick, Colorado, who had an affair and murdered his entire family to be with his mistress. From what I've read, the documentary was done with the approval of the Rusek family, which is the family of the murdered and pregnant wife, Shanann. I thought it was very well done and surprisingly even keeled. When I first heard that Shanann's family supported it or approved of it, I expected it to be very one sided, telling only Shanann's story. But I didn't feel it was that way at all. I think the creators of the documentary were honest about the way Shanann treated Chris and how Chris played such a subservient role in their marriage. I was pleasantly surprised. I had also heard that Nicole Kessinger was not going to be included in the documentary, but I was glad she was, considering I feel she played such an important role in all of this. For someone like me who has followed this case from the beginning, other than footage of their wedding, I didn't feel that they included anything I haven't already seen. But I think it was well done, and it still made me cry. If you haven't seen it yet, but are interested in this case, it's worth a watch. Okay, now on to the good stuff. Chris Watts' phone call from prison. Now, just to be clear, and to give credit where credit is due, I did not record this phone call from Chris Watts. It is my understanding that it's a recording that was posted exclusively on another true crime YouTube channel called J is for Justice podcast. So, it is her recording, not mine. She deserves the credit for it. I'm just discussing it on my channel. I want to thank J is for Justice for sharing this phone call with us, and I'll post a link to her video in my description box so you can listen to Chris's call if you want. Jay also has an additional video on Jay is for Justice podcast discussing how she obtained this recording, as well as other interesting information about the Watts case. As a matter of fact, she just did a 24 or 36-hour long live about the case that literally walks you through it from A to Z, that she said should post any day now. She and her team did an excellent job of putting it all together, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a more thorough coverage of this case anywhere else. So, if you go to J's for Justice to listen to the phone call, check out her other videos and consider subscribing to her channel. She has a ton of interesting content. Okay, to Chris Watts' phone call from prison. I apologize up front that I do not know who the man is or the woman is on the phone with Chris. I don't have that information. But they are discussing his case, so I'm assuming he's an advocate of some sort, or maybe a spiritual advisor or coach, because the man offers Chris encouragement and Chris discusses the Bible with him. Not sure. He starts off by saying that he has access to the law library and he uses it often, and he seems to be talking about preparing an appeal. He says he hates it there in prison. Poor guy. I'm sure both families hate that they have to go to the cemetery to visit their loved ones, his victims. Chris then expresses concern that since he had never been in trouble with the law before, he annihilated his entire family and disposed of them in ways that probably still haunt the rescue workers who recovered their bodies. He feels that law enforcement used that to their advantage, and they used psychological intimidation to coerce his confession. Geez, you think? But, of course, he doesn't address a single bit of the psychological games he played while he tried to convince everyone that his family was just missing, even though he had killed them. Or that he could barely contain his happiness that his family was finally out of his way in his interviews. Or while he tried to convince the world that Shanann had killed their children, so he killed her. Or with the different versions of his account of what happened that night. If you're unaware of any of the things that I'm speaking about, I have a couple of videos that I did detailing the mind games I feel Chris played during this case. You might want to check him out. He's not happy in prison, so he's angry that the investigators used psychological tactics to get him to tell the truth. He's angry now because he doesn't like prison. He didn't mind so much while he was playing along with them, thinking he was smarter than them and that he would ultimately win. He says that when they interrogated him before his arrest, that the shock and trauma was bearing on his mind, and he didn't know how to process it, so he just went along with everything they asked him. Aw, poor guy. The shock and trauma of being questioned about his family's whereabouts must have been just awful, especially since he didn't give a crap and he just wanted to run off into the sunset with his girlfriend. I mean, he got rid of his family so he could start a new life with his new love, and here investigators are, bugging him about where they are and taking up all the time he could be spending with his beloved Nikki. What the hell was wrong with them? I'd be irritated too. Assholes. Then he complains that he was interrogated for hours before he was even given the lie detector test. What the hell? So rude. Now, I know Chris isn't the brightest bulb, but he kind of brought all that on himself. I mean, law enforcement said they asked Chris to come in for questioning, so he did it voluntarily. You know, to look like he was the loving husband and father that he wasn't. At any point in time, if he felt he was being interrogated at all, let alone for hours, he had to know that he could have brought it to a screeching halt with 4 little words, I want a lawyer. I don't even think the letter A is considered a word. No, I think they call it a determiner, not a word. Anyway, he could have stopped the questioning on a dime with 3 words and 1 determiner. Or, better yet, since he was there voluntarily, he could have just said, I'm done answering your stupid questions. I have a date with my girlfriend, and just got up and left. They weren't holding him there. He was holding himself there, trying to act like he was cooperating when he wasn't. And now he wants to cry about it. Poor guy put up with their crap for hours before they even gave him the lie detector test. Guess what? He didn't have to consent to take it. He was asked if he would voluntarily take a lie detector test, and he said yes. Again, trying to look like he was being fully cooperative so they wouldn't suspect him. All he had to do was say no. Problem solved. But he didn't want to look bad, so he allowed it all to take place. Now he wants to use it against law enforcement to gain an appeal. If you watch the squad room video, you'll see for yourself that he never once asked to speak to an attorney through any of it, even when he confessed to killing Shanann. But he was shocked and traumatized by everything that was happening to him, so I guess he forgot to request an attorney. He wasn't shocked and traumatized by what he did to his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters, but he was traumatized by all the questioning. Poor Chris. I feel bad for him. Funny, I watched the squad room interrogation many times, and I don't remember him going along with their questions at all. As a matter of fact, he started disagreeing with Graham from CBI right off the bat because Graham told Chris he saw older pictures of him when he was heavier and sees how fit he is when his family goes missing. So Graham suggests that another woman might be the reason behind that. Chris says absolutely not and firmly denies that he ever cheated on his wife. Chris was on the defense the whole time. I never found him to be agreeable with detectives or to just go along with their line of questioning. Maybe he needs to go back and watch the video. He must have forgotten. He tells them repeatedly that he doesn't know where his family is and that he had nothing to do with their disappearance. He must have forgotten that too. You know, that he killed them and buried his pregnant wife in a shallow grave and dumped his precious daughters in oil tanks and all. It's interesting, though, that when his girlfriend was questioned by police, she said he texted her throughout the day, the Monday that Shanann and the girls went missing. She said he texted her that the police were searching his house and he was letting her know what was going on. I guess he wasn't too shocked and traumatized to do that, though. I still need to do a video on my opinion about whether Miss Nikki was involved in the murders or not. After rewatching the police questioning her during the live on J.S. for Justice's channel, I need to do it. It's really bugging me. Anyway, so Chris was too dumb to demand a lawyer and refused to take a polygraph, and all that is the police's fault. They took advantage of the fact that he had never been in trouble with the law before, or apparently ever saw a movie or TV show where someone was being questioned by police and demanded a lawyer. And they bullied him into a confession, he says. As brilliant as Tammy and Graham from the CBI were, in my opinion, I found them to be incredibly kind and nice to him. Like too nice. Almost to the point where it was irritating. I wanted them to slam their hands on the table and demand answers and make him cry, but they didn't. Not even once for effect. Nothing. They tried to befriend him so he would trust them. I thought they babied him a bit myself. Did they play psychological games? Yes. But so did he. And he knows it. And when he complains about it to the man on the phone, the man even laughs a bit. Like, how did you not know they would do that? He explains to Chris that it's a game. That Chris is the prey and they are the hunters. He explains to Chris that every hour they kept him there, his mind was deteriorating. Then Chris drops a bit of a bombshell. He said that after the polygraph, he hears the detectives talking outside the door, and he hears Tammy tell Graham that he did pretty good on the test, but that she thinks they can get more out of him. Then he says when they come in the room together that they tell him he failed. And he's thinking, I thought you just said I did pretty good. I find this claim very interesting because he knows he lied on the polygraph. He knows he did. They asked him if he knew where his family was. He said no. They asked him if he had anything to do with their disappearances. He said no. He knew he lied. Excuse me. So then why would Tammy tell Graham that he did pretty good? And not only that, but if he heard that, and then they told him otherwise, once they got into the room, why didn't he confront her with what he heard? Why didn't he defend himself and say, I just heard you outside the door saying that I did pretty good. Why are you lying to me? If you thought they were lying about him failing the polygraph, why didn't he demand a lawyer at that point? Obviously, they were trying to set him up, right? Why didn't he say, I'm leaving at that point? And when they tried to stop him, demand a lawyer. Right then and there. Cut the bullshit and end their games. But he didn't. He never said anything about that. And he never asked for a lawyer. Why? Because he thought he had it under control. And I'm not even going to insult y'all's intelligence by suggesting Chris thought he could pass that polygraph. Sure, he was hoping they wouldn't detect his lies, but he knew damn well he wasn't going to pass, so he already had his next move planned. He would put on a sad face and try to convince them that he didn't lie, and if that didn't work, he had the affair with his girlfriend as a backup. And that's exactly where he went when they told him that they knew he lied. So saying that he didn't wasn't an option. When they called him on his BS, he told them that he failed because he lied about never cheating on Shanann. He said he failed the polygraph because he lied about having the affair. He thought that was his answer, his way out. And it was, for about 2 seconds. Maybe 3. I don't know. Long enough for Graham to process the immense pleasure of knowing that he had just caught Chris red-handed and wiped the sweet look of victory off his face. So, he could very calmly slam Chris into check by informing him that they already knew about his affair, and that's why they didn't ask him any questions about it on the polygraph. Now, I have to say, I don't care how dumb Chris is. If he didn't realize that they slammed him into check at that moment, and that was his 3-word and 1 determiner moment, then I'm sorry, but he deserved what he got. I mean, What would he have considered fair at that moment? Graham telling him that he may want to ask for a lawyer now? It wasn't Graham's fault that Chris never watched any crime shows. It wasn't his job to baby Chris. It was his job to find the truth and find Chris's family. So, now Chris wants to cry that it was unfair that he voluntarily answered questions for hours so he would look good and consented to a polygraph test that he knew he'd fail. Even though he had hours and hours to lawyer up, but he didn't. He's mad that they beat him at his own game, and now he wants to call it coercion. He cries that he just went along with everything they said, even though he got to sit there and choose the next story he was going to lie about as they fed him his options. They say they knew he did something to his family. He says no. They suggest maybe it was an accident. He doesn't like that one either. Then Tammy says maybe he's protecting Shanann because she hurt the kids. Ooh, we have a winner. He'll go with that one. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks for the suggestion. Then he doesn't know enough to ask for a lawyer then, but he has to talk to his dad, who's waiting at the station for him. I don't know. What was his dad going to do for him at that point that a lawyer couldn't? His goose is cooked, and he wants his daddy, but never wants a lawyer. Even after telling his dad his new version of the story that Tammy just gave him, you know, that Shanann killed the girls so he killed her, his dad never tells him to lawyer up either. So he still doesn't. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to feel sorry for the guy, and I want to tell him to lawyer up. But he still thinks he's got this, so he's not worried. Want to know how I know? Because Tammy has just sold him that story moments before they brought his father in to talk to him, and Chris seamlessly tells the story to his father as if it had been the truth all along. His dad asks him if he wants to tell him what happened, and Chris tells him in a sad voice that he doesn't want to protect her anymore, meaning Shanann. He says it again, I don't want to protect her. His dad asks him what he means. Did she do something to the girls? Chris answers yes, she killed them. Just like that. Thank you, Tammy. Then when they ask why he disposed of the bodies, he said he panicked. You know, because he was so shocked that Shanann killed his kids, so he had to kill her. Yeah, he's got this. He doesn't need a lawyer. And last but not least, he expresses his disapproval of Tammy and Graham going to visit him in prison after he's sentenced to a bajillion years behind bars because he felt that they interrogated him yet again and that they were going to use all of it against him. Oh, Chris, Chris, Chris. I hate to break it to you, love, but they recorded that interview too. And one of the first things they asked you was if you minded if they talked to you and asked you a few questions about things in the case that still didn't add up to them. And you consented to speaking with them. You did not have to. You could have told them, and excuse my French, but to go fuck themselves at that point. You didn't owe them anything. You were already convicted and sentenced. They had no right to even speak to you again, but you allowed it. And now you want to cry about it. Sorry, guys, but you're going to have to bear with me for a minute. The guy obviously needs counsel to advise him at this point, so I feel compelled to help him out. Now, I don't have a law degree, but I watch a lot of court TV, and I'm all he can afford right now. Chris, if you're watching this video, and I know you are, let me let you in on a secret. They didn't go visit you in prison to interrogate you and use the information against you. They can't. You've already been convicted and sentenced. They were looking for you to implicate your girlfriend in the murders. And I know you know it. That's why you turned the tables on them and fed them your final horrific story of how you killed your little girls, including every sickening detail, down to how you could tell how full the oil tanks were by the sound of the splashes their little bodies made when you dropped them in. You wanted them to know what a monster you are, and you were hoping they would share your final confession so you could add to the overwhelming pain and sadness you already caused the families that loved them. You're unhappy in prison? Too bad. You deserve everything you got and more. Maybe you should have used those 3 words in one determiner when you needed to, and you wouldn't be in the boat you're in because you thought you were smarter than the detectives. But, personal feelings aside, acting in my temporary capacity as your makeshift counsel, you should have avoided all of this. You could have, and you could have lived happily ever after with the woman you loved if you had only used one word: divorce. Thank you all for watching, and a special thank you to JS for Justice for releasing the phone call recording. Don't forget to check out her channel for more interesting videos and case information. As always, I appreciate your time, and I'll see you on my next video.